The Honourable Member for Calgary, Lougheed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Bhullar truly lived the spirit of Namaste. And one of his final projects was the protection of vulnerable minorities in Afghanistan. When the world's attention was rightly focused on the Syrian crisis, Manmeet did not forget the critical needs of the 2,500 remaining Afghan Sikhs and Hindus out of over 200,000, most of whom had fled or perished during almost 4 decades of festering violence. Now, this summer he undertook a personal mission to South Asia, drawing upon his rich worldwide network of relationships to acquire homes and jobs, medical care and schooling for asylum seekers abroad. To the Premier, how will humanitarian efforts like these held dear by Honourable Bhullar be supported by the Government of Alberta?
Honourable Premier.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I've always found that the advocacy from the member for Calgary Greenway for religious minorities incredibly commendable. And a number of the organizations that he thought was important, whether it be Women for Afghan Women, the World Sikh Organization, the Organization for Human Welfare, and a number of different government officials and volunteers, those organizations undertake incredibly valuable work in our province and abroad. And our government will continue to support the work of these innovators as they work to promote human rights and as they work to promote effective settlement because they reflect the values that I think all Albertans want to see lived every day.
First supplemental.
Thank you, Premier. While meeting with Afghan minorities who had fled the country, Honourable Bhullar discovered that many of them had been systematically prevented by locals and sometimes by government from practicing their religion, obtaining education for their children, and accessing basic health care. He also learned that Afghan authorities could not protect Sikh and Hindu women from forced marriage and religious conversion. Manmeet expressed his passion for helping those most in need through a promise to help Afghan minorities that the world has forgotten. So again, to the Premier, please tell us, what can the Government of Albertans and indeed all Albertans learn from Manmeet's commitment to safe and supportive social environments which will enable all Albertans to truly realize their dreams?
Well, I think it's fair to say that Manmeet Singh Bhullar's ideas about how we need to reach out and make sure that the fundamental human rights of people all over the world are respected is one of the reasons why people are so moved by and troubled by what happened on Monday, because he was a person who spoke for values that are held deeply in many of our hearts, values of inclusion, values of freedom, values of respect for people regardless of their religion, and indeed sometimes in respect of their religion. And so we are a strong and free province because of the diversity we have in this province, and Mr. Bhullar knew that, and we will do everything we can to continue that legacy in the work that we do.
Second supplemental.
One of Honourable Bhullar's greatest passions was striving to ensure that all Albertans are treated with dignity and respect that they deserve. And that includes everyone, citizens, permanent residents, and those seeking to become Albertans. Manmeet sought to bring Afghan refugees to our province with the hope that they would experience and enjoy an environment in which they had the opportunity not just to survive, but to thrive, and in which they were afforded protection from basic human rights violations and systematic discrimination. So finally, to the Premier, what can the Government of Alberta do to ensure that refugees, new Canadians from Afghanistan, Nepal, and all over the world will have the opportunity to live in an open and welcoming environment in the future, regardless of where they're from?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The member's question underscores the importance of our province doing its part to help those from war-torn areas who face violence, oppression, and poverty every day. And the thriving communities that we already have in Alberta demonstrates that our province welcomes people from many faiths and many countries. And it also underscores the need to reach out to those people when they come to our province, to include them in our communities, to include them in our institutions, to help them with language support, and to ensure that they are genuinely, quickly part of our family, because that's the way to make sure that they live in the way that the member has so eloquently described and Manmeet Bhullar was seeking to have happen.